Hello and welcome to chapter 6 of this tutorial series. In this chapter we will talk about solo PvP in faction warfare. You will learn how game mechanics impact feats, how feats determine 1v1 archetypes, how these archetypes interact with each other, and what it means for you as a PvP player in faction warfare. So let's get started. I want to start with the graph with illustration that should be familiar to you by now. We talked about it in the second chapter of this series, specifically in video 2.4 and 2.6. Now I just want to revisit it and explain how structure of complexes in faction warfare impact the feats. So, as you remember, in every gated complex, every ship that activates the acceleration gate lands on the warping beacon. So what does it mean for PvP? Well, it means that any ship that is inside the complex will be able to choose the initial engagement range, because the ship that activates the acceleration gate later will always land on the same spot. This situation is called differently. Some say that the ship in the complex has positional advantage. Some say that the ship in the complex has the higher ground. I like to use poker terminology. So I say that the ship in the complex is in position, and the ship outside of the complex, the second ship that activates the acceleration gate, is out of position. Now, why is this even important? Well, it's important because when we are talking about frigate and destroyer PvP, or PvP between ships that use small weapons, they always have a relatively short range where these weapons are effective. And in order to apply the maximum damage, you need to be in a very specific range between your ship and your opponent's ship. We will look at this in the next video in more detail, but basically the one thing that you need to remember is that in frigate and destroyer PvP, it is crucial to control your opponent in a certain fairly tiny range to apply the maximum damage. And in this case, positional advantage means a lot, because your opponent will be able, or you, if you are inside the complex, will be able to dictate the initial engagement range. Now, the second concept is range control. So what is that and why is that important? So let's say the fight starts at a certain range. Let it be something like 10 kilometers. And this range suits one ship but doesn't suit the other ship. Then what is important? The important factor is who can change this engagement range. For example, I'm in a close range brawler and I don't want to fight at 10 kilometers, I want to fight at 1 kilometer. Can I close the distance? And the ability to close the distance is called range control, and it's often shortened to just control. The control is the ability to either maintain or change the engagement range using typically medium slots of your ship. So let's say I want to close the distance from 10 kilometers to 1 kilometer. Will I be able to do that? It depends on the feats, typically on the ships and feats. Range control is usually established with webs. Webs is the most important module for range control, because webs slow down the opponent's ship. The second most important is Scrum, because Scrum shuts down micro warp drive. When you have speed, both in terms of your intrinsic speed of your ship and speed with propulsion module active. In some cases, control can also be established with electronic warfare or newts. For example, with newts, you can newt out the capacitor of your opponent, and after that, typically propulsion module and sometimes webs and scrums will be shut down because they all require some capacitor to activate. And the ship that has range control, as I said, will be able to change the distance between two ships and potentially mitigate positional advantage or positional disadvantage if it starts at a positional disadvantage. We will talk about this in more detail in the next videos. For now, I just want to throw this vocabulary and explain why it's important. Another idea that comes from this structure of complexes is the active versus passive PvP styles. So what's the difference? The active PvP style typically means that you are roaming around and you look for ships that are inside the complexes, and then you engage them. What's the main advantage of this style is that you can get more fights and more kills. But the main disadvantage is that you will always fight out of position. And you may need to adjust your feet to mitigate this disadvantage. Another style is a passive fit, is a passive style. This is a situation where you just sit inside the complex, you kill the NPCs, you run the timer, and then you just wait. The biggest advantage of this style is that you always get something for your time. If someone comes, then you get PvP, and if no one comes, you get LP rewards in faction warfare. And you also always can choose the initial engagement range, so you will have a positional advantage. Now, what's the drawback of this style? You will only get fights that others want to take, because you are inside the complex, and if your opponent decides that this fight is not favorable, they simply will not engage you, and there is nothing you can do about that. So usually you will get fights that people consider favorable. So people will engage you in something that they think can kill your ship. And this is fine. It doesn't mean that you will always get killed, but this is one of disadvantages for this PvP style. Okay, in the next video we will talk about 5 archetypes and how they interact with each other using these ideas of positional advantage and range control.